Let's talk about the Roxxon lineup of multi-tools. A few weeks back, Roxxon sent me the Roxon Flex as well as the Roxon Phantom for review. And since then, I did pick up the Roxon Flash Elite and we repaired it in a video a couple weeks back. So check that out if you're interested. And there was something interesting about Roxxon's tools. First of all, really big fan of the Flex. If you've seen my review on that, you will know. The Roxon Phantom, I had a little bit more trouble getting my head around, and that's why I picked up the Roxon Flash Elite. Let's go through them real quick for those who aren't familiar. The Roxon Flash has got a nice big tanto blade. We'll come back to that, as well as a pretty long saw, and feels fairly sharp. Not the sharpest I've seen, but that's just by feel. And then internally, it's going to have our quote-unquote internally. Its small tools are going to be a can opener with a wire stripper, kind of a reamer. It's not as pokey as I'd want. Small Phillips, very small Phillips, probably a number 1. And then a scraper and bottle opener. Is that everything? That's all of the normal tools. But then inside, you're going to have a fold-out pair of really quite capable shears. Very sharp. Pretty big for a pair of a multi-tool like this. Let's pull a Leatherman Surge scissors out, and you can see the cutting blade is quite a lot longer on the Roxon Flex, or excuse me, the Roxon Phantom. However, this does not seem the most ergonomic. You've got a nice big hefty tool down here, and you're kind of manipulating that in order to move around the blades. So I didn't love that. I think it's a limitation of this kind of, feature pack design. The Leatherman Surge is also quite a big and hefty tool. It doesn't impact use when you're using the pliers. I think they feel a lot more balanced in the hand. And let's pull out one of the internal tools and just see how that feels. If I needed to drive a very tiny screw here, whoops, pulled out too many. Yeah, not ideal, but probably it's similar to what you'd get in any multi-tool. Yeah, so that's the Roxon Phantom, except for this one nifty feature, and that is that with a couple of quick change locks, the blade is completely replaceable, and they do sell different style blades, or of course you could replace it to get a brand new edge on there. Let's see if I can pop that back in place. Wasn't too difficult. And that's a really unique system that's going to be missing from the Roxon Flash Elite. I'm doing a lot of videos on flash tools lately. Let's see, the Phantom does go for $60 right now. The Flash Elite, I think, might be a little bit more compelling at $42.99 on their website. Let's dive in, and this has been repaired by me. It came broken from an eBay seller, and I was aware of that. I just wanted the challenge. Really like that blade shape. It's going to be almost a spear point type of blade. D2 steel on that. You're going to have a very similar saw on the other side. And if you see any blade play or anything like that, that's probably from my repairs, because I haven't had any issues like that from any of Roxxon's tools. Let's go to the more traditional tools inside. So, quote unquote inside, it's going to be a very similar set of tools. You're going to have a small Phillips driver. You're going to have I would call this a flathead driver. It's not really a scraper, with a large wire stripper and small wire stripper inside. I think a better much more pokey and also plenty sharp, and then a combo can opener, bottle opener. So you're getting similar functionality in a slightly varied tool set here. But you can see that these do kind of, if I flip it this way, they look fairly reminiscent, but you can just feel the pounds being shedded, quote, not actual pounds, but the metaphorical pounds on the Flash Elite. Same spring-loaded pliers or similar spring-loaded pliers. And then in addition, instead of the scissors, you're going to get a little, I believe this is a whistle. And inside of the whistle, you can remove a little ferro rod that screws in here, so you've got a nice little handle for striking a fire. Now, I'm not the biggest into camping sort of multi-tools or survivalist multi-tools, so that doesn't really do much for me. However, I do think, generally speaking, it's just a much more user-friendly, ergonomic tool, mostly because it's lost that extra weight from the scissors, as well as a little bit of thickness from this interchangeable blade system. So I would love to see Roxxon come out with a little bit more pocket-friendly version of the Roxxon Phantom. I suppose it could be argued that that's exactly what the Roxxon Flex is for, and I don't completely disagree, but I think you could get, down into that $40 price point with the interchangeable blade system and just not have the full engineering and machining needs that the Roxxon Flex requires, because this is a fully assembled multi-tool, and just eliminate the scissors and stuff like that. There is some other pieces in the Roxxon lineup. I think one of their big kind of go-tos is to add those big shears inside, and I don't hate that by any means, but I do think it adds bulk, and I don't know that it's necessary for many everyday carries. Another tool I do want to check out is the Roxxon Spark. I believe it's a much smaller, it may be exactly what I'm looking for, except it doesn't have the interchangeable blade system. But I have not had a chance to get my hands on that. That runs about $25. So that's just kind of a quick overview and kind of my final thoughts on the Roxxon Phantom, as well as early thoughts on the Roxxon Flex Elite. As I said before, very, very big fan of the Flash Elite is this one. Big fan of the Roxxon Flash, and I think that's really the one to beat right now for Roxxon, but I think they have a lot of opportunity in that $40 price range if they can dial, some of the functionality of these two tools into just a lightweight and very functional carry. Tons to explore from Roxxon. I want to do a lot more videos on the Flex ecosystem, the Flex Companion, some of the tools there. So stick around if you want to see those, my thoughts on those. But I did want to get into some of their, a little bit, I think these are a little bit older than the Flex, but kind of their standard models as I see it. And not unimpressed at all, but I think I want to see a little bit of innovation from those tools. So that is all I've got. I'm going to ramble for a couple more seconds so that the videos can pop up here and here, and you can click on them and go watch more of my ramblings. Ta-da.